Wait, I thought we were safe. Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video, which is another episode. I mean, like, episode sounds so serious, like it's like a show, but it's just another part in my reading vlog slash journey to read all of my physical books as soon as possible, preferably, but just like to intentionally read more of the books that I own before I buy any more. Just for anyone who's new here, this is just a series that I've been doing for now 6 months, where I am intentionally picking like 5 or 6 books out of my physical TBR that I really want to read, and then I ask people on Instagram to vote for me because I have trouble making decisions sometimes, and whatever books get the most votes, those are the books that I end up reading and kind of like vlogging my experience with. I think it's been fun too to kind of gauge where I'm at when I'm like kind of judging books essentially by their covers, but like also like judging books based off of what I've heard about them and like being willing to buy those books. I'm already pretty picky with the books that I do buy, I feel like. Generally speaking, it's been fun seeing that like generally I've been pretty satisfied with the books that I've been picking, or like I'd picked in the past or bought in the past. Anyway, so that's what we're doing here. These are the books that and also it's very sunny. I mean, I'm so glad because this is like, it's finally getting like really sunny and nice. But anyway, these are the 5 books that I put a poll up for, and the 2 that won are, let's see, drum roll, Martyr and 1984. So I'm very excited because out of the stack of books, these 2 are actually the ones that I really wanted to read more than the other ones. I also got a comment last month, that Lolita and Kairos, these 2 books, have like similar-ish themes and might be interesting to read together. So now I'm like more intentional about, I think whenever I pick up one of them, I'll pick the other one up too. But out of the like stack that I kind of arranged, these 2 were the ones that I really wanted to read sooner rather than later. So I'm really excited. I'm not sure which one I'm going to start with because I kind of want to start with Martyr, even though like I've been excited to read both for so long, but I kind of want to start with Martyr because I had so much success with All My Rage by Saboteur, which was like a contemporary novel, and Martyr is also like a contemporary martyr. I'm getting so tongue-tied. But Martyr is also a contemporary novel, and I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm in the mood for that. Also, the writer is Iranian, and the story is about an American Iranian. So like, reading for the experience and the relatability as well. We're gonna start reading these. I'm actually gonna start reading them now. I just got done doing like a bunch of work and stuff. Not to go on too far of a tangent, but I'm in the middle of applications for like teaching and online jobs. I'm also in the middle of querying my novel slash thesis, and all of that's been very like terrifying because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just in a very like transitional period of my life, and there's so much uncertainty outside of that as well. So keeping my head above water, reading really helps me do that. Let's start reading these now. I finished a bunch of work and I deserve it. Like, whatever. It's the final days of Ramadan and I'm making ghormeh sabzi. So like, I feel like we should start with Martyr because we're feeling very Iranian. It was also just the Iranian New Year. Oh look, the sun like decided to behave itself. But anyway, oh no, I don't know what's going on, guys. Ignore the lighting. Let's start with Martyr. I like to sit in front of my window. I feel like I'm kind of like a plant and I like to sit in front of my window, facing the window and just looking, like not looking because I'm reading, but like just facing the window, sun shining down on me, books to my left, desk and like workspace to the right, and just in my books. Let's read the first sentence together. I'm actually gonna read the dedication as well because it's like actually insane. For the martyrs who live. There's also like a little Clarice Lispector. I've actually never read anything by her, but people in my program have mentioned her before. It says, "My God, I just remembered that we die." Me every day. Okay, first line, sorry. Maybe it was that Cyrus had done the wrong drugs in the right order, or the right drugs in the wrong order, but when God finally spoke back to him after 27 years of silence, what Cyrus wanted more than anything else was a do-over. I'm really excited to read this. I'm going to cry. I actually am going to cry reading this, I think. Okay, just a little disclaimer. I don't like recording myself. Like, so far, I haven't been able to, like, if I was reading and I wasn't already recording myself, which I haven't been, but if I was reading and I wasn't already recording myself and I started crying, I did not pick up a phone and like, or my camera and like record myself because it felt awkward. But if I cry, please don't, like, just pretend you didn't see it. Like, I'll leave it. I don't know. I'm debating, but if I am reading and I start crying, I think I'll like just show that because it's real and like whatever. And yeah, let's just see what my reactions are gonna be. I feel like I'm gonna cry. I'm also very like sensitive right now. Let's read this together. I'm really excited actually. I checked on my food and it's cooking. I decided to move to my couch and sit and read or like my living room to sit and read just because I want to feel like I'm not working. I'm on page 28 and I think it's like chapter 3, but basically, like, I know this is a weird angle, but so this is my little sloth. His name is Herbert. I know I just started the book, but I'm really enjoying it so far, and I think it's because of the conversation around faith and certainty. I mean, like, from the first page, main characters like, how is it fair that like I'm expected to believe in this wholeheartedly when I didn't see the miracles that like the prophets saw, or like these like different people saw in religion. And I'm starting to wonder, because like that's something that I think about all the time, and I'm starting to wonder where that comes from, because even me, my personal, which it's not really a conversation I want to have on here anyway, but briefly related to what I'm reading, is like this is something that I've felt a lot as well. Is this not just the difficulty when people expect you to be so certain about your religion when I'm not certain about anything. You know what I mean? But also this feeling of what this character is talking about, going through, of wishing that he could experience that certainty in a way of how it would be so much easier if, instead of doubting things and wanting to know the reality versus wanting to just believe what's most comforting. Really excited to see where this goes. And I think because of the conversation that, let me hold this is like weird angle. Obviously the title is Martyr, and from the cultural experience that I have being an Iranian specifically, there's a lot of like glorification of martyrs, especially in the way of religion. And so I think that this book from the get-go is going to be, and seems to so far be, about faith and this exploration of certainty of faith and religion throughout your life as you're trying to go through very human experiences, because in a lot of ways many of us were taught about religion. I feel like the ways that I at least have been taught religion, many people that I know have been taught religion, is very this lens of idealism and perfection that you're trying to attain and kind of reach, right? And that can be really, obviously it's good to have something that you can reach for that's perfect, right? Like the perfect role model or the perfect example. But at the same time, I think we often fall into traps then, because anything that we do that's not perfect, we fall into this trap of constantly feeling like you're failing, which is something that I know I felt for sure. Human beings are just inherently imperfect. It's really pretty much impossible to be perfect, you know? You're supposed to be like working towards that perfection, which feels at a certain point as you get older especially unattainable. So yeah, this is making me think about a lot of things, because it's just, yeah, I think it's so cool so far. And there's also this part where Gabe, who's Cyrus's AA sponsor, but he's like, you write poems about being Persian and Iranian and whatever, about pomegranates and stuff, but you're more American than my kid or whatever, which I thought was really funny too, because I think there's also things to be said about that attempt to stay connected to culture that a lot of us feel, a lot of immigrants or children of immigrants feel, and I think that's also coming into play here. But I'm really interested to see what happens, because this whole thing seems to be, it even says it on the back, it's an exploration of how we spend our lives seeking meaning and faith and art and other human beings. I think this is coming to me at a really good time. Car update, and I don't know why we're doing a lot of car updates now, but we are doing a car update. Let me turn off my car actually, because I know you guys can hear the sound. I finished Martyr earlier today. I have so many thoughts. This book is so I really enjoyed this book because of because of all the things Iranian American. What he writes about faith, what he writes about feeling lost, grief, death, martyrdom. I really loved all of those parts. There are these like dream sequences that are so random and just, I don't know. I felt like they were unnecessary. My favorite parts were the Cyrus perspectives. It was like third person POV. Those were my favorite parts. I also really loved the mother's point of view, like the first person point of view. There's a huge twist and reveal in this that I did not expect at all. And I actually got spoiled. Last night I was reading and I paused to like look something up about the author because I was just curious, and I got spoiled, which kind of sucked because I think that like I didn't see it coming. I had theories while I was reading, but I didn't see what turned out to be true. Really enjoyed this. I'm gonna wait to talk about it more at the end of the video, like at the end once I've read both books. I love this. I don't think it's the best book that I've ever read, or like I don't think it's like the best book objectively. I think that it, like, as I don't know how to explain it. That's why I need to ruminate and marinate a little bit more my thoughts on this, because I loved this book and the experience of reading it, and I flew through it. But at the same time, I don't think that as a book it was a perfect book. Like, I think the circumstances surrounding me as a person and me as a reader and how I've been feeling and whatever, I love this book. But I think in a vacuum as a book, it's not like the best book ever written, if that makes sense. I'll get into it a little bit more later on. So that's Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And I brought with me, and it's actually kind of funny because I feel like I kind of match a little bit, but yeah, I do actually, red, white, and black. But anyway, I matched 1984 and I brought it with me to the park, so I'm gonna go walk around for a bit. I want to start like going out into nature again. I've been like dying for it, especially since Arizona was so much fun. So I came to the park. I'm gonna go walking a little bit, and then I'll probably sit somewhere and read for like maybe an hour or something. But yeah, let's go. Gonna be so for real. It's actually so cold because it's windy. Like, I think if it was not windy and it was just like the sun and this temperature, it'd be fine, but I'm freezing, so I might actually just walk a little bit more around and then like sit in my car and go home. Let's read the first line of 1984 together. I am planning on starting it today. It's not super long, actually. Yeah, it doesn't seem super long, so let's read the first line together. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Okay, interesting. Actually, I'll save that thought for later. Let's start reading this.
Page 119 out of 332. I'm pretty much 1/3 of the way through. And I will say, first of all, this is really well written. And I think my main thought right now is that even though it's great and the content is great and it's really interesting, it is very slow going. I'm 1/3 of the way through and nothing really has happened. It feels like the character just kind of ruminates a lot. And the whole idea of nothing happening does make sense because obviously they're constantly being surveilled, so you can't really do much. I do think that it's picking up because I just started part 2, I guess. I don't think it's by chapters. So far I'm on the second part too. You know, it looks like a J, but I'm on the second part, and then like each part has these little sections, which I like the sections because it gives you this illusion that there's a lot of places to stop, even though I read all this yesterday. I'm actually hoping to get through at least 1/3 more today and finish it by Sunday, but we'll see. It's been really good so far. Lots of commentary on memory, propaganda, what we all choose to believe. So much like gaslighting going on in this novel that it's crazy. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I just woke up. I'm gonna start reading for a little bit and then go get on with my day.
Okay, so more sit down discussion. So I'm on page 140 actually. So I think I'm a little bit past 1/3 of the way through. Things are just starting to pick up. I feel like around part 2 is when things started happening because Julia and Winston like fully met and started to like develop their relationship. It makes a lot of sense to me that not much was happening up until that point because obviously they're in a surveillance state, so like how much are they going to get away with doing, you know what I mean? Like it makes sense that he's so stuck in his head about all of his ideas about the party and like the different things that he believes in because ultimately he's stuck in that system. I think it's just so fascinating. There's so much, let me put my bookmark back where I am because I'm just going through the highlights and stuff, but there's so much that I've highlighted because it's just so crazy to think about. There's so much about memory and propaganda and essentially global gaslighting almost of this idea of if the majority of people are convinced to believe that something is true, then maybe it's actually true, as opposed to how are you going to prove that it's wrong? If everybody agrees that 2 + 2 = 5, then how are you going to prove, or like how are you going to convince anyone else to believe that 2 + 2 = 4? There's also a lot about absolutism, the opposite of nuance. So here's like one thing about the absolutism that I really liked and I highlighted. The enemy of the moment always represented absolute evil, and it followed that any past or future agreement with him was impossible. So a lot of times the different countries, I guess, that Oceania, I don't know, but like their enemies, when they change, the country literally makes it its job to erase any sort of like evidence in the past that would hint that there was like a alliance or like they were working together. So if Eurasia, for example, becomes their new enemy, they make sure that it's in no records at all that Eurasia was ever an ally to them, and vice versa, because they deal in absolutes that way. And it's like so crazy the amount of effort that it would take to go to these lengths to, you know, literally control the public is so insane. So here they're talking about the process and like all the things that they change and switch up and control to make sure that people are on the same, like the masses essentially believe what the like government wants them to believe. As soon as all the corrections which happened to be necessary in any particular number of the times had been assembled and collated, that number would be reprinted, the original copy destroyed, and the corrected copy placed on the files in its stead. This process of continuous alteration was applied not only to newspapers, but to books, periodicals, pamphlets, posters, leaflets, films, soundtracks, cartoons, photographs, to every kind of literature or documentation which might conceivably hold any political or ideological significance. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. It's so crazy because, like, I mean, obviously, and it's 1984 is like known for being the novel about this stuff and how, like, propaganda and control of like the public opinion, and not just the public opinion, but like information which influences the public opinion, is so necessary to keep that like government, that government ultimately in power. And like this whole novel is really touching upon that idea of to what extent different origins of power will go to conceal information and align it with like what they want the people to believe. Let me mute that actually. It's so crazy because especially now with like the rise in censorship, it really makes you realize just like to what extent and how dangerous it is. I mean, we all kind of know it, but like books like this, like maybe they're an exaggeration of what might happen. I don't think they necessarily are. Even if they seem as like an exaggeration of what can happen, it serves as a good reminder of like how far things could actually conceivably go. Obviously with dragons, probably will not find dragons like in our history or whatever, right? Or magic systems or whatever, the way that we see them in fantasy novels. But with books like this, like dystopian books, it's it's like within the realm of possibility. Now, do you have to really stretch your imagination to be convinced of it? Yeah, a little bit. It is conceivable, you know? And it's just so insane to see to what extent censorship can go and might go if power can get a hold of controlling that or whatever, you know? I don't know. I kind of lost the thread of thought towards the end. I also want to let me just read one more quote because like I have highlighted a good amount of this. Heresy of heresies was common sense, and what was terrifying was not that they would kill you for thinking otherwise, but that they might be right. For after all, how do we know that 2 and 2 make 4? Or that the force of gravity works, or that the past is unchangeable? If both the past and the external world exist only in the mind, and if the mind itself is controllable, what then? This is literally like the country level gaslighting that's happening in this book, which Winston specifically remembers instances where things were different. We weren't at war with, I'm saying like I live there. They weren't at war with Eurasia. Like he remembers the details of when they were allies or whatever, but every single piece of evidence that would hint otherwise has been eradicated, and every other person who might be able to say that it was otherwise has also been eradicated. So it's this huge like system of just complete control. And that's why I say that it makes sense that not much is happening. I'm like this percentage in, right? And I'm wondering to myself, how relevant is the plot itself necessarily? Because like I have read dystopian, like I don't remember much of Brave New World because I read it a few years ago, but I feel like from what I do remember, the plot was a little more fast-paced and more things were happening. But also in that novel, it wasn't the pure control that we see in this one. And so I think the point of this is the emphasis on thought and how that's like the only thing that realistically couldn't be controlled or well, it can be manipulated. Your mind can also be manipulated, but now I'm kind of like torn because your mind can be manipulated. It takes a lot of effort to not give in, especially if everyone around you is believing in something. You're more inclined to believe it, and especially if there's like no evidence for it, there's no documentation. Another thought that I've been having as I've been reading is just the emphasis and like the importance of documentation, journal writing, taking pictures, taking videos, recording yourself, talking to people, letters. It's so important to just document everything. Not everything, but document things, because otherwise, if you don't have proof, then you're more inclined to be susceptible to manipulation, essentially. Especially if the people around you, not that people are doing that, but especially if the systems around you are fabricating evidence, essentially. Yeah, that's my thoughts so far. I feel like there's nothing plot-wise that I can really talk about because not much has happened. Let's keep reading. Okay, hi guys. It's so crazy because it's snowing so much. I woke up this morning and I looked outside and I was like, this is insane. It feels like it's winter and it's technically spring. Anyway, I'm reading this. I didn't think I would need to, not even like need, I didn't think that I was going to have any more updates until after I finished it. But something crazy just happened and I don't know why I didn't see it. I saw it coming because like you see it. Why did I do that? I saw it coming because you know that it's going to happen. But it was a jump scare to me. I don't know. I feel like the way I expected it to happen, I think I just expected this thing to happen in a different way. It's so freaky deaky too. Okay, spoilers. So they just got found out. They just got caught. And basically it's this part that like I was highlighting a bunch. I was enjoying the writing, but it's so crazy. So let me tell you what was happening. So they've been reading the book, and I was gonna say this at the end, but I'll just say it now. The book feels like, the parts of the book just felt like a massive info dump of the world building, which I was kind of getting bored and I was like, no. I was like, I don't want to not like the book just because of this part. And it wasn't even that long. I was just like, okay, we got to get through this. Not that it was bad or anything. I was just like, no, I want to know what's happening in like the story. But yeah, so they're reading the book, which is always italicized, which I thought is just such a funny detail. And then there's this like, every time they go, there's this like apartment that they got where they go to hang out, spend time, whatever. Spend time. But Julia and Winston, they go and they hang out there, whatever. And from the start, like there's always been this woman that's singing outside. She's this like older middle-aged woman who's doing the laundry and singing and whatever. Winston like looks at her because she starts singing again, and he's just like so astounded by how beautiful she is, and he never thought about how like beautiful this woman is. And he asks, why should the fruit be held inferior to the flower? And then he goes through like he's like literally gaining awareness of like, wow, like humanity is so beautiful and it's so mind-blowing, and the idea of like a woman's body basically, he's like flowering and then swelling up, have like for childbirth and then whatever. And he just starts having this realization almost of like the hope of the universe, which is so crazy. This is so crazy, but he starts having this realization of like there's a word I'm looking for, like almost the immortality of humanity, almost because of the fact that like ideas and stuff are spread from body to body, is how he describes it. Let me read this passage to you because it's literally so beautiful. It was curious to think that the sky was the same for everybody, and the people under the sky were also very much the same, everywhere, all over the world. Hundreds or thousands of millions of people just like this, people ignorant of one another's existence, held apart by walls of hatred and lies, and yet almost exactly the same. People who had never learned to think, but were storing up in their hearts and bellies and muscles the power that would one day overturn the world. And he's just like, he says the power is in the proles. The proles are essentially the masses of people. So because Winston and Julia specifically, they're part of the party, the outer party, and then there's an inner party, and then like, which is like the main governmental body, right? The novel so far, he's just kept repeating to himself, power to change is in the masses and blah, blah, blah. It's so crazy. I love this because I think about it a lot, of like just the resilience of humanity, and the idea that the masses together, people have power, and how similar we all are. And then we get to the part that like made me pick up my camera. Winston's like having all these realizations and thoughts, and then suddenly out loud he's like, we are the dead. He said, we are the dead, echoed Julia dutifully. "You are the dead," said an iron voice behind them. I was like, wait, I thought we were safe. I thought the way that they would be discovered was gonna be something else. Like, did Mr. Charrington turn them over? Like, what is happening? The picture had, this is like a little bit later, but the picture had fallen to the floor, uncovering the telescreen behind it. No! And then what's so freaky deaky is that the telescreen keeps repeating what they say. "We are the dead, you are the dead." And then Julia says, "It was behind the picture. It was behind the picture," said the voice. And then it says other things, but like, "Now they can see us," said Julia. Now we can see you," said the voice. "The house is surrounded," said Winston. "The house is surrounded," said the voice. I'm like, oh my god, this is so freaky deaky. So I finished 1984. I finished both the books, and I'm here to talk to you guys with my like final thoughts on both these reads. I think there was a clear favorite, and I surprised myself because I expected Martyr to be my favorite of the two, but actually I really enjoyed 1984. Like, next level. I loved 1984. It was so crazy. We'll get into that. You know, it's so crazy because whenever I pick, or whenever like two books are chosen for me, a lot of times I don't necessarily see the ties between the two until I've read both of them, obviously, and then I think about them more and more and see how they're connected. Both of these books deal with propaganda, memory, self-control, external control. I mean, in different ways, but it's present in both of these books, and I just really enjoyed having them both in my brain essentially, so that I could like think about them later. So let's just get into my thoughts. Again, another disclaimer, one last disclaimer, there will be spoilers in this portion specifically, especially. Let's start with Martyr, since I read this first. This entire book is about Cyrus, who is trying to make meaning of his life. He wants to make meaning specifically of his death, and he is just obsessed with this idea of making his death count. Also is obsessed with this idea of martyrdom, which in the Iranian culture is very prevalent. And when he hears through his friend about this artist in New York who's doing an exhibition called Death Speak, which is essentially putting herself on display because she has terminal cancer and she's dying, he decides to go there and speak to her. As it turns out, she's also Iranian, and she kind of talks to him about the cultural implications of martyrdom, of death, of this obsession that specifically male Iranian men have with dying as martyrs. He also, like, throughout all this decides to write a book on martyrdom specifically. When I first finished reading it, I really loved it, and I still do love it. Like, I feel partial towards it because I think that there were a lot of things in this book that I don't see in a lot of books that kind of just made me feel more drawn to it than maybe other books that I've read. But the more that I've sat with it, the more I think that there was maybe a good like 40% of this that didn't need to be there. Specifically, there's dream sequences between the most random characters that just, I understood what it was trying to do with, you know, sprinkling in a little theory of like, oh, this and that, like, yeah, just trying to be deep, I guess. And I don't say that in a bad way. I don't say that condescendingly. I don't think that it was heavy-handed in that way necessarily. General thoughts is the dream sequences were a little bit unnecessary. There's also a plot twist, which I didn't see coming. I had a different idea of what was gonna happen. And the more I think about it, the more I didn't like that. Not necessarily because I think it ruined the book or anything, but I think it ruined one of the characters that I really liked in this book, and not in a way that made her complex or sympathetic to me, at least. I just was like, ugh, what a shitty person. And for no real reason. Didn't love the twist upon second thought, and didn't really like the dream sequences, even though I knew I figured out what they were trying to accomplish. I wish I had quotes and stuff for this one, but I really did zoom through this really fast. It was quicker and kind of an easier read, I would say, than 1984 was. I loved Cyrus's parts the most out of all of the characters, like his perspective. I loved the mom Roya's part as well. I think it was trying to be a weird book is the thing. I don't think it was trying to be like a contemporary novel in the way that we know of them. I think it was trying to be a little more experimental, especially with the different chapters being written in different ways and whatever. Don't really have that many thoughts because I did read this a couple weeks ago. I finished this a little bit a while ago. That's Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. Now we get into the star of the show, which is 1984 by George Orwell, which is so insane. Read the last lines, the last like 5 pages, I think, at the gym. Because I needed to go to the gym, but I also needed to finish the book, so I was on the treadmill during my designated walking treadmill time. And I finished the book, and my stomach dropped when I read the last few lines. Especially when I read the last line. My stomach dropped. So, okay, quick summary. Winston Smith is our main character. Him and everybody else in the party, whether they're inner party or outer party, are watched by Big Brother, and they're kind of unsafe, therefore, to express anything. And this includes thoughts to a certain extent, because the smallest like expression on your face that insinuates anything against what the party wants you to be expressing, I guess, is risky and can lead to your detainment and eradication. But even so, Winston feels he keeps having these thoughts of wanting to kind of destroy Big Brother, and he purchases a journal, so he starts to self-express. It just kind of starts to accumulate until he starts a relationship with Julia, and they start secretly meeting and blah, blah, blah. I was really surprised at how much I loved this book. It's definitely like a new favorite, and I think first of all, I know I'll think about this for a really long time because it's so much more than I initially thought, like when I was growing up. I don't know, this is so crazy, guys. This is so funny, but when I was growing up, I don't know which adult told me that like you can't read 1984. It's about adults having sex and it's not even a good book, because that was one of the reasons why until a certain point in my life, I didn't even consider reading it, because I was just like, oh, it's probably just smutty and weird. And I'm so glad that I read this, because that's not what it is at all. Okay, I kind of wrote out some notes for this one specifically because I was so excited after I finished reading, just like to dissect. There's so much in here. Let's start with the end. So I was very devastated. I didn't see it going that way at all. Because I've read other books within this genre, and usually the world seems to be moving towards like some sort of a change or betterment. And the way this ends is just so insane, but not just on a like societal level, but on a personal level for this character. A lot of times with books like these, or even like other dystopian books, you have a main character that ends up being kind of the reluctant hero, or sometimes like the very eager hero, but like you have a hero character that is going to bring down the system, blah blah blah. Not only does that not happen, but it was just such a crazy reversal. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this the whole way through. There was one part where the book italicized, basically Goldstein's book, is kind of info dumpy and just kind of giving you world building information that I didn't think was super necessary and felt a little bit like a drag when I was reading it. But the last like 50 pages, everything seemed to just speed up and just intensify. I don't know. The book is definitely an exploration of like our minds, and it was so crazy because when I first started reading it, I was like, oh yeah, the only thing that's free is our minds. But by the end of this book, I was not really sure of that. We're not free. Oh, like there's so much that goes into affecting the way that we think and the way that we behave, therefore. I don't know. It's an exploration of our minds, of how far control and manipulation can go, not just of our bodies and our actions, but also our minds. Specifically the lies that are told to us through propaganda and the lies that we believe for our own survival, sometimes not even consciously. There was also some like glimmers of hope for humanity, but because of the ending, it felt so futile. But there are a couple of quotes that I wanted to bring out. So there was the quote that I told you guys about earlier in the vlog, but there's also this one where Winston is being interrogated by O'Brien, which, oh my god, that was so insane. I trusted him. O'Brien is like interrogating Winston and asking, how do you know that what you're doing and your thoughts and stuff are not futile? And like, this is the world we're trying to build, a world of control, a world that the party will never be brought down, blah, blah, blah. And then Winston says, and I've kind of like just a side note, I've cut down the quote a little bit. Like I've skipped over a couple of O'Brien's like short responses to that, because he just keeps asking why not, why not. But this is the quote that I pulled. "You could not create such a world as you have described. It is a dream. It is impossible. It is impossible to found a civilization on fear and hatred and cruelty. It would never endure. It would have no vitality. It would disintegrate. It would commit suicide. I don't know. I don't care. Somehow you will fail. Something will defeat you. Life will defeat you. I don't care. In the end, they will beat you. Sooner or later, they will see you for what you are, and then they will tear you to pieces. Do you see any evidence of this happening, or any reason why it should? No, I believe it. I know that you will fail. There is something in the universe, I don't know, some spirit, some principle that you will never overcome." This is during his interrogation, right? So this is before everything that happens in the ending, and like we see what happens to Winston at the end. But I think that this last stand against O'Brien and all the torture and torment that Winston's been going through for such a long time, I don't know, it just really struck a chord with me. There's even this part where O'Brien is kind of trying to show how weak and frail and powerless humans are, and he does this by showing Winston, and this is like so much time has passed, but we don't know how much time has passed because we've been with Winston this whole time, and he has no idea how much, like how many days, months, years, or whatever it's been. And he tells Winston to take off all his clothes, which he does, and then he puts him in front of this like three-way mirror. Winston just sees that his body is completely decayed, like completely just doesn't have any fat, muscle, bones, nothing. I mean, he does have bones, but like not fat, muscles, whatever. His skin is sagging, he's balding. And that whole like scene of O'Brien trying to be like, look at you, you're so weak, you're so frail, you're so powerless, there's nothing you can do to stop us. And Winston still being like, no, you cannot stop us. Like, it's going to happen. We will beat you. It was just so insane. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. Is it really just... It's really what Winston talks about there is something, I don't know what it is, but there's something in humanity that survives in the face of so much cruelty and control and abuse of power and oppression, which I really just, I think I would have started crying if I wasn't in the gym when I read those last lines though. So let's talk about really quickly, I just want to talk about the ending. I highlighted the last line while I was on the treadmill. I know. It was so crazy. He loved Big Brother. What an insane line, by the way. What an insane final line. There is still something to be said, because even in the ending, Winston keeps having these thoughts rise to the surface that he pushes down. Essentially, he's doing like double think in action. And I have to think about this a little bit more, because I literally finished reading this like I think yesterday or the day before yesterday. I do think there's something to be said about like Winston, even though temporarily he has kind of succumbed, there is a chance that he comes back in a way, but I don't know. That's not the point here. The point is the ending was so great. Like, I didn't expect that at all. I did not expect that at all. And it hurt so bad. I was so shocked too when he gave up, when he finally betrayed Julia, because I didn't think he would do that. And betrayed in the sense of when they use his biggest fears, which are rats, against him. Up until that point, he had never betrayed Julia. And in the way of, he had given them their information, her information, he had told them all about her, but he hadn't stopped loving her and given her in place of himself, basically. The moment with the rats, like, it made so much sense that he would do that, even though I was hoping he wouldn't, but it just made so much sense because that was a terrifying situation. I think even if you don't have an inherent fear of rats, you would be freaked out. But like, and that's the thing, that's why those final lines are so insane, is because up until that point, he had still loved Julia, and he did, and then now he loves Big Brother. It was just so crazy. I still need to think about this a little bit more, but it was honestly just one of the best books I've ever read. I wrote on my Fable review, required reading, no notes, and I stand by that. Required reading. There's also this part, and this is why I put like dying as yourself, but there was also this part towards the end before the final scenes where he's sitting in the chestnut bar, I think it's called, and it's after the sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but after the rat scene where he gives up Julia, essentially he betrays her, but before the very end where he's kind of completely succumbed to Big Brother and the party and whatever, there's this small scene where he's still kind of imprisoned, but he has started eating more like regularly, he's gaining his muscles back, he starts exercising in his cell, and he has this thought of like, he has to control himself, his feelings, his true hatred for Big Brother long enough that when they decide to shoot him, because he's expecting them to like shoot him at some point to like just kill him once and for all. And I also thought that might happen too. So until the last moment, because the whole thing that O'Brien keeps talking about is that we don't want to make martyrs out of you, which is so crazy because it's related to martyr. But he's like, we don't want to make martyrs out of the people who kind of defy us. What we want is to push them until not only are they telling us that they're convinced and that they love Big Brother and they believe in Big Brother and whatever, but they themselves are convinced and truly love Big Brother and blah, blah, blah. And Winston's having this thought of, I need to control my emotions and my behaviors and whatever enough until the point of just when they're about to shoot me, show all that hatred on my face so that I die as my true self with my true thoughts. Which also made me think very randomly, but also it makes sense that it made me think of this, but it made me think of Peeta from the Hunger Games when he's like, I don't want them to change me. So I was hoping that was gonna happen. Like, I didn't want Winston to die, but I wanted him to be himself, and it was just so crazy. It was just so crazy. And I know I keep saying that over and over again, but it truly is one of the most incredible books I've ever read, because rather than giving into that human nature of like wanting to know that everything's gonna end well and people are going to rise up against the power and overthrow it, this one doesn't do that, but I still think that it leaves room for hope with the resurfacing, with Winston's thoughts about dying as himself, and just even the thoughts that Winston had before he was ultimately like locked up and then tortured and stuff. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense and doesn't just sound like me rambling. I do know that I'm rambling, but these are such good books. And 1984, I'm definitely going to reread at some point, and probably sooner rather than later. Like, on my list of books that I want to reread at some point, it's definitely up there because it was just so insane. And I'm super excited because I just started reading Sunrise on the Reaping, and there are definitely links between like this and that with propaganda and control. So good. I highly recommend both of these. But if I was going to say pick one up, 1984. If you've read 1984 already, let me know what you thought. I do know that for a lot of people it was required reading in school. I don't know why I never read it for school. But yeah, let me know your thoughts for both of these, but specifically for 1984 if you've read it. Yeah. Thank you. This is so good. As you can see, I have Sunrise on the Reaping there. I'm like 24% of the way through. We're not going to pick books for next month. I've already picked them, but I kind of want to change up the way that I'm going to do these vlogs for a little bit, because I mean specifically I think I'm going to pause them for a little bit because two things. One, I reorganized my TBR shelf, so it's that shelf over there, which I'll show you guys in a second, and then these books that are not read, these books are not read. I'm going to start like trying to read more of them in my day-to-day life without vlogging, because vlogging does take a little more time to get through a book than not doing that. But also, like, that aside, Libby has been just drowning me in my holds. I have at least 4 or 5 books that keep coming in from my holds, and then I keep suspending them because I'm just like, I can't do this right now. And I really want to read those books and kind of focus on the books that I've checked out from the library. We're going to take a little bit of a break with these ones, just for a little bit. The next 2 that I'm going to read, though, are going to be Lolita and Kairos. So I want to read those 2 together. Hopefully I'll figure that out soon. But I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break from the physical reading vlogs just to be able to focus on other books in my life that I do want to read. Yeah, hope that's okay. I'm still gonna do reading vlogs because I really like to. I love doing reading vlogs. I'm already trying to do one for Sunrise and the Reaping, although it's really hard to keep pausing and then being like, guys, this is just what happened, blah, blah, blah. But I am doing that one, and so might skip 1 month or something. We'll see what happens, how I'm feeling. I have so many Libby holds coming in that I really want to read. With that all said and done, let me know if you did read any of these books. I'd love to know what your experiences were. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here. Hopefully I'll see you guys in another video very soon. Goodbye.